Welcome.
Buddy.
Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode here at Sobriety University. My name is Joel, and today we have an awesome guest with us. Welcome, Anze. Anze and I met recently, and he has his whole thing going for him. So I'm just gonna take a minute here, and Anze, feel free to introduce yourself and tell us
Hi,
what you're doing.
everyone. Thanks, Joel. Right, yeah. So my name is Anze. I now live in a small country called Slovenia, which is kind of between Italy, Austria, Croatia, and Central Europe, I guess. And yes, majority of my 20s, I was smoking weed. I actually call myself a professional ex-stoner for some reason. And then last year, towards the end of 2021, I decided I'm going to start my last joint, um, which is kind of an um, online service for anyone struggling with marijuana. And that's a very long story in 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, Ajay. Yeah, that's gonna be awesome. Guys, if you do want to get in contact with him or check out his podcast or anything, it's gonna be linked down below in the show notes. So feel free to check that out. And definitely be on the lookout because we're definitely gonna be working together, Ajay and
For
I, in the
sure.
future to keep
Hmm
spreading this message. So really excited to have you on the podcast, man. Or really excited to have you on the channel. Well, we can edit this out.
It's
Really
fine.
excited.
It's fine. It's fine. Don't
Really
worry.
excited to have you on the channel here.
Yeah.
And we're going to start diving into some questions here. A lot of the people on Sobriety University are really curious about pot, and a lot of them deal with weed addiction. So this is going to be great. First question for you, and obviously the most basic one here. What got you into weed?
I mean, honestly, I don't to this day I don't know. Like it was very spontaneous, kind of the first time we were smoking, and I actually explained this on my website. I moved into this new apartment and I met my flatmates. And it was one afternoon, one evening. I kind of knew what weed is, but I never really like used it before. When I was younger, I've seen some of my like schoolmates and friends use it. Was always like nice, fun. Like I don't know. I didn't have the tendency, I guess, to use the drugs because back then I still like kind of looked at it as a drug. Anyways, going forward, so yeah, we were in that living room, and three of my flatmates, actually four of them, were smoking, and they asked me if I want some. And I was like, well, I'm in another country. I'm having this whole new experience with people, and I tried. And this was kind of my first, like, moment. Like, okay, like, that's not too bad. Like, that's like this can be fun. And then slowly and like surely this got into like kind of a daily habit, and then it just went downhill from that. But yeah, I wouldn't say it was like a very, it was just a very spontaneous kind of a thing, like, you know, and I didn't have necessarily resistance before, but I was just never around people that I guess were using drugs in general. I was drinking alcohol, but that was as far as it goes with me. I was never really like, weed or like any powder or whatnot. I was just, and then I was in a new country because I moved around after I left Yellowstone in America in 2010. I went back home and I said, you know what, I'm not going to study. I'm going out in the world. And I went to England, to Southwest, to Bournemouth, and I found myself a place. And yeah, I think it was about 2 weeks in when I was there. I was like, okay, I'm free. Like, no one's here. My parents are back home. I can do my own thing, do whatever I want. I can be whoever I want. So it was almost like, let's give it a try. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? And then it was just this slow, like, you know, slow, slow paths that just led to more smoking and yeah, problems and whatnot.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sure many people listening can relate to that. It's a slow burn, pun intended. And I felt the same way. Like as soon as I got into an area where like other people were doing it, it just took off.
hmm
So uh,
hmm
it, it always starts small and then grows. So now something I'm always curious about is that usually there's always like a benefit when first starting an addiction. Like something's great
Hmm.
about it. Like you almost fall in love with it. What was
Hmm.
that for you?
I mean, it's kind of hard to say at that point that it was a benefit because A, I didn't realize that it was addiction, and B, I never went into it because there would be a benefit. So for me, it was like, I was 20 at that point, 21. I was working around 30 hours per week. I was going out, I was partying, I was meeting people. So for me, it wasn't like, I guess what I want to say is nowadays I'm more like, I filter more things that I'm going to do, or I plan more things that I'm going to do. I'm very selective of what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it and what I'll do with it, right? But back then, when I was 20 or 21, that just wasn't on my mind. Like, I don't know, some of my flatmates wouldn't work on Saturday, or like, they would come home earlier, and we would play some PlayStation and have some weed, or we would go out and then come home late in the night, and um, we would smoke some weed. I don't. I mean, the only benefit I guess I would see, even though I wouldn't consciously go and do it just because of that, it would be just fun and the socializing aspect. Like is this old saying like Nokia is connecting? I think weed is actually connecting. Like, like, but at that point, honestly, at that point, there wasn't any signs of addiction yet, because that came later on. That came actually when I first kind of tried to quit for a day, I think, and that was about 3-4 years into the journey of smoking.
And so what, when you first started to quit, what led that decision, that
I
initial decision?
mean, it was kind of a this kind of started like I was slowly like passing those bridges on the way, right? So I was started smoking with my flatmates, and then I would go and I would yeah, I wanted to say I wasn't sure what happened with your light. I was I wanted to say, but I thought, okay, he maybe changed the scene. Anyways, yeah. So, um, the first time the first bridge I did is I got weed by myself. So I went to the dealer and I got it for myself, right? And then the next bridge would be I was smoking by myself. And then the next thing would be I always said I'm never going to smoke during the day, or I'm never going to smoke by myself. So I already did that. And then, I smoked 9 o'clock in the morning. Um, and then the next step was that I canceled work because I was ill, even though I just wanted to smoke weed. Um, so yeah, that kind of piled up to the point where I was like, dude, like you smoking weed every single day, like Monday to Sunday, like from 9 o'clock to like 12 o'clock, like it's just pointless at this time. And I tried to quit. I said, okay, well, why don't we just cut down? Like, why don't we just do one day, like one day of not smoking? And, it was one of those where it's like in the morning, like, yeah, let's do it, let's go. And then by 12, 1 o'clock, I would be on autopilot going to my dealer. And then I realized like this is seriously affecting, I mean, everything, like, my decision, my mental health, um my well-being, my finances, everything. It's like at that point I realized that marijuana just touched every single aspect of my life. And the worst thing is I could not say, like, I could not quit. Like, it was just there with me everywhere I go. It was in my head. That was the worst thing. Like, it was everywhere I went, it was in my head. Like, I'm not going to smoke weed. Yeah, you're not going to smoke weed. 2-3 hours later I would smoke weed. And it was yeah, that was kind of the first um yeah, that I realized that I just cannot quit, like not even for a day. And that's when I kind of got these mental notes that that's not just a habit anymore, or that's just not being a little shit, or being like 24 and being young and wild and free. It's an actual problem you develop through these years. So yeah.
Well, that's amazing that you were able to recognize it was a problem right
Mm-hmm.
away. I think a lot of people are not able to recognize it, which is
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate. and kind of years go by. And I mean, that happened for me. There were signs years before I quit, and yet I
Yeah.
was like, I was like, I'm young, wild, and free. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's
Yeah.
really cool. And anyone listening to this, like, it's really important, I think, to heed the warnings, because
Mm-hmm.
there are warnings. And
Yeah.
I'm really happy you talked about this, because 2 days ago, I made a video on 3 signs that something is becoming an addiction. And you just
Mm-hmm.
touched on all of them, just straight up. So guys, you don't even have to watch
Mm.
the video, just listen, re-listen to what Anze just said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just one of those things, like, but I feel like, and I think a lot of heavy stoners will be able to relate to that. Like, the warnings anyways. Like, you had the warnings, but you didn't take them serious, And
Hmm.
then you do realize that it went too far. And then you start looking back and you're like, oh yeah, you know, I had this whole journey. Like, I could have done this before. So, you know, I definitely agree there must be more done on the prevention side, but yeah, anyways, I just don't think until you realize it by yourself, like, you can watch all those videos, right? Everyone on the radio can tell you, even your friends can tell you, dude, you're smoking too much. But until you realize it yourself that, you actually have a problem, I don't think much change or kind of the change of the direction happens, sadly.
Yeah, it's definitely a personal journey. And I mean, I can relate to that, because if someone would have told me when I was smoking, which
Mm.
people did, like my dad, he's like, dude, don't be a bum. I'm like, Dad, you don't know
Yeah.
what's going on here. You don't
Yeah,
know how bad.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, so it definitely takes that moment. What was that moment for you where you finally said, you know what, Anze, we've had enough. No more
Mm-hmm.
fucking up
Mm-hmm.
our lives.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know, dude. It wasn't one moment. That was like again, this was few years in development. So the first time I kind of realized it went overboard was, I guess, when I was 24, 25. And at that point, I had this thing where I would be only smoking on the weekends. But then sooner or later, I would realize that, every Friday afternoon, I would freaking run home. Like, my normal Friday at that point would be to go to the shop, get my dealer, roll 3 or 4 joints because it was a good week and I was a really, really good boy. So I can reward myself now. And then I would just be high from Friday to Sunday. That was kind of the first point where I realized I'm only compensating what I don't smoke during the week, because during the week I wasn't smoking. So now I'm smoking only on the weekends, but I'm actually smoking more because I'm not smoking on the weeks. Anyway, so it was more of this kind of a point throughout. The first kind of a real breakthrough is when I changed the environment, when I changed like my surroundings. I went back home for about 4 or 5 weeks, and funnily enough, at that point I only smoked once, and I don't know what it was. I still think it's because I was very active. I was traveling around, to seeing lots of people. But yeah, that was the first breakthrough for me. And then I came back home and I kind of got into it back again, even though it was a bit slower. Like after 3 months, I was smoking again every day. And then I took a break. So the first kind of a actual like break, I think it was 2018. I took a break for 6 months. So I said to myself, listen, this has been going on for a few years now. Why don't we just smoke when we are 60, 70? Like, and we actually do something with ourselves now. And that went well for about 6 months. And then it was just a random Sunday. I wanted to go down to the beach, but I had to stop at my solicitor's before. And I went to see my solicitor and we had a silly argument. I mean, he should like, I paid him. He should be working with me, but he was just, I don't know, it was just such a weird confrontation. Anyways, I was going back home. I called my dealer. I said, listen, I just need one joint. And he said, no, I'm not giving you a joint. You need to have a bag. And that's it. So I got the whole bag. I went to the shop, got some tobacco, got some razors, came back home, made one joint. 45 minutes later, made another joint. That day, I smoked the whole bag, even though 6 months I was like solid. And then next week, I was just high every single day. And that went well. That went on for about 9 months, and then in August 2020, I just said to myself, at that point there was a corona as well. It was kind of a height of corona in England, and I realized like the COVID is not going away. And also my landlord, she was being a bit weird about the flat and everything. She was kind of threatening that she's going to sell it. Um, so, and I had enough as well. Like, at that point, from the time I relapsed after 6 months to the August of 2020, I guess it was the worst time because mentally I knew I have to quit, but I didn't want to quit. So it was almost like I was being this irresponsible little shit. So yeah, and then in August 2020, I said, listen, you had this whole experience, 6-7 years, like you tried to cut down, you tried to take a break, you tried to take a longer break. Like what is the point anyways? And yeah, that was the big kind of aha moment, if that's why you want to call it, when I said, okay, well, let's just quit for good, and that's it. And from that point on, I wouldn't say it was a solid journey, but it was very straightforward journey because I just knew there's no point of me smoking. So
I had a similar experience where it was just like as soon as I decided to quit, it was game on. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's good for people to know. I think that it's like you're gonna have to go through some trials, tribulations like
Mm-hmm.
you did
Mm-hmm.
to get
Mm-hmm.
to that point where you're finally ready. So uh that relapse you had was what would you experience when you had that like did you feel a lot of shame, guilt,
Oh,
or
it's horrible, Joe. It's absolutely horrible. Like I wouldn't. I think that's why quitting marijuana sometimes can be so damn hard or so challenging because, like, I talk to a lot of people and 90% of them, they say, I just cannot do this. Like, I'm just gonna keep on smoking. Like, what's like, it's just a bit of weed, anyways. Even though deep down they know, like, they want to quit or they have this desire to do it, but it's horrible, man. Like, it's almost, and for me, it was, I think that happened when I was 28, 29. So it's almost like I had 4 or 5 years of this journey where I was like, I would quit and then start and breaks and cut downs. It was almost like, dude, is this ever gonna like freaking stop, And then it's almost like, yeah, 6 months, let's do it. And it was a summer as well. And yeah, it just like the thought, this is the worst thing. This is like the craziest thing. Like this thought of just having one joint just came out of nowhere. And I had these thoughts before, but I always kind of followed them through. But this one, it was like, nah, I'd be fine. Come on, man. Like we didn't smoke for 6 months. We got it under control. Like, what are you talking about? Like, we're fine. We're out of here. Like we're not like others. But like that afternoon, like I said, like first joint, 45 minutes later, another joint in the evening, a whole back, and next week I was stoned every single day, like nothing happened. Like, yeah.
man, we for anyone that goes to support groups, I know Anze and I have, and we can't say them by name.
Mm.
However, common sense, you kind of know what they are. A lot of people, a lot of the literature describes just that. Like it's cutting, baffling, and powerful. So the relapse will just come out of nowhere, and that's like
Mm-hmm.
crazy to hear that you just
Mm-hmm.
had that one thought and it just planted the
Mm-hmm.
seed and just
Yeah.
sprouted. It's crazy. When you finally did quit again for the second time, did you have those thoughts again? And if they did come up, were you just what was your reaction
Yeah,
to
I
it?
mean, I absolutely did. Like, in August 2020, when I decided I'm going to quit for good, I knew at that point, like I had this whole experience. It's almost like someone would continuously slap me for 4 or 5 years. So I knew by that time that if I do smoke, it's almost like I
Mm,
get slapped myself.
it's a
So
great analogy.
I know. Yeah. um, but yeah, so I knew that I cannot. I don't want to smoke. No, I knew that I cannot smoke weed, but I didn't really have my thoughts in order yet. So about in 2021, in the beginning, um, I started to get cravings. And cravings would be actually when my triggers went like when my triggers started to like come in my head. So for example, I don't know, it would be a sunny day in the park and there would be a bench. That would be my trigger, or I would work for a whole day and it would be 6 o'clock in the evening and I was coming home and I would be going the same road as I was going for last 8 years. That was my trigger, So I kind of started to look into a lot of literature, started to explore a little bit, and I realized like, I have to clean, I have to almost like dig out these thoughts in my head. And then I realized like, even though I consciously decided to quit weed for good, in my subconscious mind, I still had a lot of desire. I still saw a lot of value in using weed, right? So I had to clean these thoughts out. I had to go one by one each. Like I think that was the longest. I mean, the longest. Towards the other stuff, not so long, but it took me a few months to kind of, and I still do. Like about 4 weeks ago, I just got the most random craving again, and I just had to go at it. And I was like, okay, what are we doing here? What's going to happen? Why do you feel like this? Stuff like that. So yeah.
That's a great analogy. I haven't heard that before. Cleaning out the subconscious.
Yes, because like, the trouble I see with a lot of people like trying to quit weed, the first thing they do is, okay, you gotta have why you want to quit, right? But the first thing they do is, I want to quit weed because I don't want to be stoned on Saturday. I want to quit weed because my finances are not in order. I want to quit weed because my girlfriend is screaming at me that I smoke all the time. All these reasons of why you don't want to smoke. But really what you should do is you should look at why you want to smoke. Like why do you want to smoke? Like if you look at the desire, then you won't ever have the desire again, because you have to like, a lot of times, like why we smoke weed is actually the false belief that we kind of grasp upon ourselves throughout this journey, right? So, oh, weed relaxes me. Oh, I'm more sociable when I'm stoned. Oh, weed helps my anxiety. But that's the sort of the beliefs that you have to attack, because if those beliefs are gone, then there is no point in smoking weed, right? So for me, it's almost like I know now that weed is not helping me with anything. It doesn't help me be more sociable. If anything, I'm completely antisocial when I smoke weed. It doesn't help me relax. Like there's millions of other things I can do to relax. And that's the thoughts I had to clean out. And I didn't realize that until I consciously decided I'm going to quit for good, because before I was almost like dabbling in. I was like in and out, in and out, in and out, So
That's so cool, because I think a lot of folks, I did this too, they just try to quit. They don't actually address those issues. And it sounds like that's what you did, and it really worked. And I know from our relationship that you do coaching as well. So is this something you your clients how to do?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the key. Like this right here is the key. Like, if you cannot afford a coach, or if you don't want to go with a coach, like just write down the reason. Like make a pros and cons list, right? Make a cons list, like, okay, I don't want to smoke because of that. But then look at the pros, like why you want to smoke, and address the pros. Like go at pros. And this is not one day process, right? This takes over the time, and same as the triggers, right? You will get triggers like even a year or 2 years after. Like I said, I still get the triggers. So but you have to go at it, and you have to attack it. Like what we trying to do here? Like why do I feel like smoking now? What I'm trying to get out of the smoking? Like am I, like this sort of the things. Because once you remove this desire, once you kind of crush any thoughts for smoking, then there's no desire, right? Otherwise, everything what you're doing is just like, are you realizing why you're not smoking, but you're not actually looking at why you are smoking, Like your subconscious mind will always win over the conscious mind. Like what is down there, everything, all your beliefs, all your triggers, all your desires will always win over what you think up here, right? But if you address those things down there, if you bring them up and face them head on, like
Absolutely.
that was one thing with me. For example, I was scared. Like I remember in 2000, this year in the beginning, I had 1 or 2 triggers and I was scared of them. I was like, oh my God, here we go again. 1.5 year later. But I said, no, like, that's not what we're doing here. Like, just confront them. You always did anyways. Like, what we're trying to do here. And then I confronted them. I was like, okay, you're not going to have like,
100%, 100%. And
yeah.
yeah, triggers can be scary for sure. And yet, you're right. They come back. They'll always be there in some way or form. Like whether with a certain kind of relationship. I had a weed trigger this week where I used to sell drugs at the address was 528, and I woke up, I checked my phone, and we had 528 subscribers. The first thing I thought of, that house.
Yeah,
Awful.
see, this is how it works. It's weird. Like the brain is so funny in a way, but yeah.
Yeah. And so what advice would you give to somebody that's maybe a little scared to face some of that stuff? Some of those deep.
I mean, you shouldn't be scared to face them because it's your own thoughts, right? It's your own kind of a brain you're facing. So I don't think you should be scared to do it. Like, understand that this actually, the whole desire to smoke, the whole need for smoking, everything that you do about smoking is coming from your own thoughts. So unless you face them, you'll never be able to quit. Like, that's why I say to people that are like, okay, I have my partner who is telling me I have to quit. How can I do this? Like, it's never going to work. It has to come from you. Like, or, you get people that are like, all right, so I'm taking this job and I have a drug test. So I really have to quit in the next week. And I'm like, dude, like, forget it. Like, if you're not going to, you yourself consciously decide to quit and then face your own kind of a thoughts, then there's no point in doing this because you'll never succeed. And it's not as scary as it sounds anyways. You just have to ask yourself a couple of questions and then face it.
What are some of those questions that you would?
So some of those questions would be like, what do I get out of smoking weed? Like, why do I smoke weed? And then you will get some, or you can look at your habits. Like, if you come home from work and the first thing you do is smoke weed, then perhaps you want to relax because of weed. Or for example, if you smoke weed before you go out, then perhaps your thing is that you want to smoke weed because you're more social in a way, But a lot of times there's deeper reasons for that as well, which at some point you might address as well. But if you address the thoughts first, if you address your reasons, and you can redirect it to something else, you've done a lot of stuff already. So
I think a good analogy is to what Anze is talking about right now is exercise, where you kind of have to want it to get in shape. Your friends, your family can tell you, dude, you got to lose weight, you got to do X, Y, or Z, clean up your diet. But that almost makes it like, oh, fuck you, I don't want to. I don't want to do this. You're telling me. So I agree. It's definitely like you got to come to that realization on your own, and it's a crazy journey.
Joel, I'll just add another thing to that. There's a thing called the trap, right? And it's when you realize that marijuana is affecting you in a negative way, right? That's when, and I hope listeners realize that's when you cannot go back to the normal, right? You can pretend that you enjoy weed now, or you can pretend that you're having fun. But once you know in your brain that what marijuana is doing to you, that's when things start to get really, really bad, because now you're consciously doing it, even though you know it's not good for you. So that's what I call the trap, because before, like, you didn't know marijuana is affecting you in a bad way. You kept smoking, but now you know, but you still do it. So now it's almost like you would be cutting yourself in a way, or you would be slapping yourself,
Oh,
So,
yes. Yeah. It's like back to the gym analogy. It's like I just had a great workout. I'm gonna go to McDonald's to reward myself.
Exactly.
I can't do that after a while. Yeah, that's a big moment when you have that realization that it's becoming conscious. And it's like the red pill. It's like the Matrix, right? Take that red pill. You can't go back whole life as much as you want to. And I think everyone's has a different timeline until when they finally accept the red pill fully. Thankfully, it seems like you accepted it you read the warnings. I definitely took a while longer. I ignored
Hmm.
tried to go back to the
Hmm.
comfortable life.
Yeah, if I can add to that, I think the biggest problem is actually not the warnings, is accepting the warnings. I think that's the problem, the biggest problem. Acknowledging that I have a problem, you know? Like
Okay.
I remember back then with me, it was like, no, what do you mean I'm smoking too much weed? Like, and I was reading all these stories as well and what other people's were experiencing. Like, I'm nothing like them. Like, they smoke every day. Like, lo and behold, like I looked at myself what I was doing for the last week, smoking every single day. Oh,
Mhm,
I can quit whenever I want. I tried to quit for a day. I couldn't even hold 5 hours. Like.
mhm.
So yeah, it was I think it was this acknowledgement, it was this acceptance that I have a problem. That was a big thing with me as well. And I know it's a big thing um with other people as well, because I coach people, and it's like, listen, you have to realize that you have a problem. Like, there's no it's nothing wrong if you have a problem, but you have to accept that you have a problem. Otherwise you cannot move forward.
Yeah, yeah, and it's some people don't want to do that,
Mm-hmm.
except they have the problem. And I empathize, and it is cool though to see the people coming on our channels that are wanting
Mm-hmm.
to accept the problem, and they're putting the
Yeah.
work in. So it's really exciting. So guys, we have about a few minutes left because we're on Zoom and we have like the 40-minute time limit. So
Oh man, this brings back so many memories when I was doing first episodes, and I didn't
yeah.
want to explain to my guest what's going on. It was like, oh my god. But yes, I'm glad that you mentioned it.
Yes, oh, I love it. So I think we're gonna do a part two here coming up,
Hmm.
where we definitely talk about some of the benefits that you received, how your life really changed for the positive.
For
Because we
sure.
definitely talked about some tough stuff here, kind of facing
Hmm.
some of those tough truths. And so,
Hmm.
guys, definitely stay tuned. We're gonna in the next couple of weeks, we're gonna meet again for sure, and
Cool.
kind of get to know a little more about the positive stuff. Because I know there's definitely good parts of our recovery. Someone watches
That's
this, I'm
it.
like, oh fuck, I don't want to get sober. This sounds like miserable. There is a silver lining, folks. I promise you. So, thank you, Anze, again so much. This has been awesome. I learned a ton from this. And if anybody wants to contact you, where would please like let us know your YouTube channel.
Yeah, if you listen, if you just go to mylashjoint.com, start from there. But if you want to listen to a lot of success stories, or if you want to listen to expert talk about it, listen to my podcast as well. That's My Lash Joint. And that's it. Like, it's pretty simple. And yeah, thanks for having me, Joe. Like, when the first time I've seen your videos, I was like, I really like you. I don't know, your energy and your vibe. Like, I feel like you make this whole topic light up, because sometimes addiction in general can be just very daunting, and talking to the people and hearing stories sometimes can, like, it can like put your mood down. It shouldn't, but it can be a little bit, a lot. So when I first saw your channel, I was like, yeah, I really like this. Like, you seem to master how to put the energy and the vibe into something that it's not necessarily so pleasant and so excited and happy. So yeah, when we talked about it, and you came on my podcast anyways, but yeah, when we talk about it, I was so into it, because I said, of course, like, I love it.
Thank you, man. For the people watching, like one of the best things to look forward to is when you get to sit down with buddies and just
Yeah.
talk about how how stupid you were. It's the funnest thing, I swear.
Yeah.
It brings so much joy to talk about those war stories in a place where they're no longer consuming your life. So that's definitely something to look forward to. And guys, thank you guys so much again. As always, like, comment, subscribe. Subscribe to Anze's channel. He's got podcasts weekly, and it's really cool. He talks to a lot of folks. And stay tuned, guys. Have a good one. Peace.
Bye.